You don't have an intro,
All
right? You
right.
don't have like a, I mean, like
Oh,
a
you're in
big
the
graphic
intro, buddy,
intro.
right now.
I know.
Good morning. It's NOMBERG LAW Live. I got my buddy Andy Stuckey from Brooklyn. Good morning, Andy. I know
How you
today is
doing?
not the best of days. I'm doing well. I'm doing well, but it's still stinging from last night's loss. I
Oh,
know
it hurt.
that you guys are watching as well.
Yes, we were on my kids stayed up until, as late as they could make it. It started at 8 o'clock here,
Uh,
obviously, so they were
yeah,
they made it through the first half.
well, so did
Disappointed.
Alabama, barely.
Yeah.
But we'll put that loss behind us. If there's any team I don't mind Alabama ever losing to, it, I guess it would be Clemson. But
And I'm sure
you never want
everybody's
to
going to
lose a
say that,
game.
and rightfully so. They were better than us. They made better plays. That I mean,
They did.
the
I think
catches
the
they
team
made,
got outcoached and outplayed.
yeah.
Well, guys, thank you again for joining us. This is NOMBERG Law Live. We come to you every Tuesday at 10 o'clock Central, 8 a.m. Pacific. And today I have a lifelong childhood buddy of mine, Andy Stuckey, with me. Good morning, Andy, and I appreciate you spending some time. Come on in just a little bit
Yeah.
closer.
How do you how does this work? Um, how you doing, Bernard? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Andy, for folks who don't know who you are, and that's probably almost the entire world except for
Pretty
maybe your
much the whole
family,
world, yeah.
tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing these days.
Well, I'm from Dothan, Alabama. I grew up on Camelot Court, not far from Selkirk Drive, where you grew up. And I currently I've lived in New York now for almost 20 years. So I've approached that point where, and I've been a New Yorker for a long time at this point, but I've almost been in New York as long as I was in Alabama, which is a little frightening. But
Hmm.
I moved to New York when I was 23 to work in the TV world, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Right, kind of going up the ranks of PA to associate producer to all the way up to showrunner, but I wanted to work in comedy, so I moved to New York to do that and pursue comedy as a performer, writer, director, and, you know, it's worked out okay at times.
Now, you've got a couple of different comedy duos you're part of. Tell us about both of those, if you will.
Yeah, well, the first one, the first comedy duo I was ever a part of was Stuckey and Murray, and Murray and I met in the NBC Page program, which was, we were, that's like a fifth year of college, I would compare it to, where they take 60 kids from all over the country, all over the world, really, and they bring you in like increments of 6 or 7 every month, and you're allowed to work for 1 year, and then you're fired. So you get to know a lot of different people throughout the year, and you give tours of Rockefeller Center, you do assignments. But there were a lot of like-minded people there that wanted to write and do comedy. So we started a comedy sketch group, and then as that fiddled out over the next 6 or 7 years, me and Murray were a part of that group, and then we became Stuckey and Murray and performed comedy for a long time. And we've kind of slowed down, and as we both now have 2 kids, and Murray moved to the suburbs, and but we have a few songs in our hopper that we may get back into the studio, in the next month or so, and have a little fun. But my wife and I also have a band. I wouldn't call it comedy. We do have a sense of humor about some of the songs that we write, but it's not like straight comedy. But our band is called Paper Anniversary, which is your first year together, which we named it that. Our first album has pretty much every song came from something that happened to us in our first year. And when you make an album, it's a big undertaking, but anybody can do anything for 1 year. Paper Anniversary, you can be married to anybody or anything for 1 year and you'd be okay.
Well, I have just posted, Andy, to below the live feed on my page a YouTube video entitled "Dead to Me" by Paper Anniversary.
Yes.
Now, tell me what that's about. Who's in there
So
and what's that about?
that is, Catherine and I we enjoy writing songs about how we don't like each other. We're very much in love. We like each other, but we find it healthy to, write some songs about things you don't like about each other. But that song came about from I used to carry around a little black book that I'd write ideas in, and that's what every comedian does pretty much. Is you carry it around on the train everywhere you go. Anytime you have an idea, you write it down. Nowadays, it's your phone, it's your notes. But in that was the start of that song, which is just, if you ever want to break up with someone, send them that song. It is,
Oh
it's
boy.
perfect.
How well received was that song by the families, by
Well, the
your
thing
respective
is,
families?
that's the hilarious part is my daughter loved it when she was like 2 or 3 because it was fast and we sing harmony in it, but she didn't understand the words. And then when she became 4 or 5 and understood the words, she was like, Dad, no, Dad, no, like. So that's been, yeah, Maggie. That was Maggie. They're both the same way about it. They influence each other pretty heavily on that. So they understand the song now, but they don't love it. You know.
That's funny. Well, hopefully they will both grow to love both of y'all's sense of humor. But
Yeah,
I want to take you
we're
back,
trying hard
Andy.
on that.
I want to take you back. I know that Brother David and you are really closer in age, and
Yeah,
there was a pack of you guys running around the neighborhood. You're several years younger, a couple of bunch of pests as far as I
yeah,
was concerned with my friendship group. But we always had fun playing sports in the neighborhood and just doing what boys do as you're growing up. We had the woods, etc. But one of the longtime funniest things that I've been able to probably improperly or incorrectly tell is the origin of the term lakashannah. Now,
yes,
before you tell the story, because I know you and David, this is something from either second or third grade, it is a term that I have used for 30 years or more to mean anything and everything. It's kind
that's
of like
beautiful.
shalom or any other word that you could use that has multiple meanings. If someone says roll tide to me, sometimes I may say lakashana. And that's
Yes,
not correct down here, but so take us back. I know you and David were in second or third grade, but you got to
yeah. It
tell
was
this story because I just think it's so
so
funny.
that the story is, as I remember it, it was definitely second grade. Miss Campbell was our teacher, and I remember Miss Campbell. It was notorious that she was the strict second grade teacher. So she was tall. I remember hearing her heels like click when she walked. She was just intimidating. But the Lakashana story happened in Miss Campbell's class, but I don't believe she was reading to us. We would have people come in and read books to us. Um, and so as they were reading, I believe the book was, we were learning about flowers. I know that. We were learning the parts of the flower, whether it's the petal, the stamen, the pistil, the leaf, the stomata. What is a stomata? So she would ask questions about what's this part, pointing to a different flower. We're all seated, crisscross applesauce on the rug, and she asks, what is this part of the flower? No one knows it. David is sitting right in front of me. I lean into David and I say, that's the Lakashana. I don't know what I'm talking about. I made up a word. I thought it would be funny. David, we were best friends. He trusts me. He's gonna, being the good student that he was, he fired up his hand and they said, David, and he said, Lakashana. And she looked at him like, what? And he confidently again said, Lakashana. And
Like
then it was
cursed in
mass
Hebrew or
confusion.
something.
Yeah, it was just like, I think he looked back at me probably, and I am in these giant glasses. If you don't know what I looked like in second grade, it was just, I could see the future. My glasses were so thick.
I gotta pull that. I gotta put that picture up if I can. But keep going.
Yeah, but so, he looked back at me and I'm looking at him and we're just like, it just, as I remember, it was just left there. I don't know what happened after it, except, this term was created that stuck with me and with David. And we shared that story of like, how did this happen? It was,
Well,
I don't
he
know
must
what
have had
happened after it.
trust.
I will say that, but I will
That's
never
funny
forget
because you
Lakashana.
guys, whatever trust may have been broken that day, you must have found it later on in high school because I know you were one of his wide receivers for those years you guys played at Northview. And there has to be some trust between the quarterback and the
Oh, of course.
receiver at times.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, you guys survived the Lakashana science class story, but that word has just meant so many fun things over the years. I think at one point I even made a song parody out of the term. If I could find it, I'd share it with you. But let's move forward. You get out of college, you head to New York, and
Yeah.
you start your career up there, like so many others. And I know that just following you over the years and hearing from family members and friends from Dothan, you found your niche. And part of that niche led you to Central Park and a video and
Yes.
a movie, a documentary that you made. Tell us about mullet tossing. Tell us what
Well, that
happened
was,
in that experience.
yeah, when I moved up here, after I'd gotten accepted into the Page program and figured out like, okay, TV was definitely the route I wanted to go. Um, or movies, and another friend from Dothan, Harris Mendham, was at Georgia Tech in their engineering department, and we knew he'd already made a little short film in Dothan. We wanted to make movies, and we knew to do that we were going to have to do it ourselves. We weren't going to go to film school. I've already kind of started working. We're going to have to figure out a way to make our own little film school, our own little TV school. So we had heard about the mullet toss, which is a fish throwing contest at the Bama, which is in southwest Alabama at Perdido Key. And that we just found that like, that's it. We got to document this thing. And so we decided we got to come up with a story of why I'm coming there. So, I mean, it was simple that I was just going to compete in the mullet toss, but we needed a little bit of a backstory. And what worked great was just my real life. I was a page at NBC, and you're giving tours of Rockefeller Center, which can be monotonous, but is also you also have access to like Conan and the Rosie O'Donnell show at the time and Saturday Night Live and some things that really helped me out later. But we decided that if I trained throwing fish in Central Park and then came down to the mullet toss, whatever happens could be gold. And then lo and behold, we just really struck gold with the story that the characters that we met there and what actually happened to me in real life made it, amazing.
Well, before we get further into the story, Andy, it set the tone. What is the Floribama, and what does one see on any given Saturday or Sunday at
I
this
mean, it's
place?
changed now because of Hurricane Ivan. Hurricane Ivan blew the whole thing down in like 2004 or five. But the Floribama is like, a redneck honky tonk that welcomes everybody. I mean, it's a package. I mean, it's essentially a package store when you walk in. So you walk into a liquor store, and it was like that for the longest time. And then you walk to the back, and there's a music room where they hosted a lot of original music, which was awesome. And then then they have big bands out on the patio and stuff where they have kind of cover bands. But it is, and it's right on the beach. It straddles the Alabama-Florida line, literally. You can buy lottery tickets on one side and you cannot on the other.
So, some say it really is the epicenter of the Redneck Riviera.
Absolutely. And people hate that term, but it is, you might see a blender there with a Harley motor hooked up to it, and you will see
That's right.
plenty of, there's a lot of redneck activity going on down there. A lot of
All right. So
sunburns.
tell us a little bit more about the mullet tossing competition or the contest.
Yeah, well, the beauty of what happened to me was that I met a six-time champion who happened to look like, who called himself Woody, and he happened to look like, his real name was Mike Broom. I'm still in touch with him. But he called himself Woody because he looked so much like Woody Harrelson, which was amazing. He was a spitting image, except for he talked like this. All right. He talked more like McConaughey than he did Woody Harrelson. But so meeting him, he became the Obi-Wan to my Luke Skywalker and taught me all. He had retired from throwing fish. So he taught me everything
how
he
does one
knew.
retire?
Yeah. Well, he hurt his shoulder. That's how you retire.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
He tore some cartilage in his shoulder, messing around, not throwing fish, but just messing around, and decided not to compete. But it was, meeting him really drove it all because it helped. I mean, he was my end. People knew him there. People already knew him as he was like a 5-time champion. So he was a little bit of a legend.
So leading up to the annual competition, you're living in New York at the time,
Yeah.
and you're working for SNL, or
No,
what are you
at
doing
that
at
point,
this
I was
time?
not. I was still a page. I got
Okay.
hired by SNL after the page program. I started at SNL in the 2000, 2001 season and
Okay.
2001, 2002 season, the 9/11 season.
Okay.
So
Now,
that
how
was
did you
like my first
practice
show.
for the?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I
Your first show.
My first shows at SNL were the spring of 2000,
Okay.
2001. Yeah.
So you didn't go into the competition without any practice.
No.
Take us to your practices.
Well, the practices were hilarious. Just throwing fish in Central Park, and a guy comes up to me and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I told him I was training. First, I'd gone down to Chinatown to get a red snapper, which we determined they don't have mullet in New York, or they have red mullet, but they're not like the fish that I was gonna throw in on the beach. So I had a pretty hilarious interaction with a park guy, a park security, who just told me I needed to get a rubber fish and put some baby oil on it. That's what he said. So
So he knew.
yeah, he knew. He knew. He's like, yeah, I can't have this out here. I mean, also I'm in Sheep Meadow, which is, if you've been to Central Park, it's in every rom-com. It's in, people know it. It's beautiful. It's like a beautiful grassy lawn and all these buildings in the background. But so training, I also, I didn't train too hard for it. It's a fish throwing contest. You went out there just, that was kind of, I trained for the movie. I was lucky that I'm a decent athlete and had a decent left arm from, left over from high school, and I didn't throw it out in college trying to be the hero.
Now, ultimately, did you finish and put out the movie?
Yes, we did. We finished the movie, put it out, it released it. It went into several film festivals. We took it on tour, and we went on tour with some of the musicians that were from the floor of Bama, which was a lot of fun. We met people that we stayed in touch with that came and performed. They would perform first, and then we would show the movie, or we would show the movie and then they would do some live music after it. And that was
And
awesome, a lot of fun.
all of your training and preparation, how did it result when you competed?
Oh, I won. I won the whole
And,
thing.
and what does one win when he wins the mullet tossing
I
competition
probably have
at
it
the
somewhere. You win a metal tin trophy and a $200 bar tab to the floor of Bama.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
And I
pride,
assume that
and
the
just the
tab.
title, which was, that was the cool thing. The owner of the floor of Bama, Joe Gilchrist and Pat. Joe, I got to know well because he let us film all this stuff. We were 23 years old. He was super cool. I mean, he's an older guy, that maybe 60. He just was really nice, thinking, these guys, what are they going to do? They're not going to harm anything. So he lets us film, doesn't hear from us for a long time. And then 2 years later, I contact him and say, Joe, we have a movie. We've done it. And show it to him. And he became our biggest supporter. I mean, the Floribama probably bought 1,000 copies of the movie and sold them for us. And
Oh, sure.
they helped us
Great
with
publicity
just,
for them.
anytime we were having a screening, somebody from the Floribama would join us. So they would get people there. They would help promote. They were just awesome like that.
Now, if they contact you to bring you back out of retirement, would you compete again?
Sure. I would need Woody to be there though. I think Woody lives in like Iowa or Idaho now. He moved north, but it would be fun to get that gang back together.
There's your sequel. There's
Yeah.
your sequel.
We actually
Well,
shot a
guys,
sequel that we never cut.
Oh,
We actually
very
shot a
good.
sequel to that we never cut, where me and Woody did go toe to toe. But it was
That needs to be put out sometime soon.
yeah, I'd have to talk to Harris. We tried to cut it. It was much harder to do the second time, just with crowds. The crowds at the show were bigger, or at the festival were bigger. And I seem to remember maybe Woody getting drunk and not being able to participate. There was
Well,
some fun stuff.
there's that.
Yeah.
Well, guys, for those of you just joining us or watching us later on, I've got Andy Stuckey. Andy is a childhood friend of mine from Dothan. He lives up in Brooklyn with his lovely wife and children, and has made comedy his career. Some of it is funny, some of it is not. He'll be able to tell you which is
Yeah.
which. But I want to, Andy, I want to pivot to some of the things you're doing a little bit more currently, because I know you have done some work this fall with someone who's fairly famous, very large, and
Yes.
is a lot of fun to be around. So let's talk about your time with Shaquille O'Neal. Talk to us a
Yeah, I
little bit
was
about
I
that.
worked I was the one of the co-EPs on Shaq's show, which was fun. Um, and for my gig, I mean, I was there. We made 8 episodes for Facebook Watch on a show called Big Chicken Shack. So if you're on Facebook watching this, if you search Big Chicken Shack, you can find all the episodes.
I'm going to
And
put
people,
the link to it in just
I'll
a second.
pop up in them every now and again in the background. The showrunner, my friend Mark, is all over the show and basically became a character in the show. But we had a lot of fun with Shaq. I mean, the world is that guy's playground. I mean, everybody loves him. He's got enough money to do whatever he wants, and it was pretty awesome to see. You know, he took us to his houses in Atlanta and Orlando. We traveled all over the country with him. Spent a lot of time in Vegas, and it was amazing to see that lifestyle. And he was cool. Shaq would, FaceTime with my kids and put them to bed and send them videos, and he was
He
awesome.
became Uncle Shaq.
Yeah, he became their little Uncle Shaq for a few months.
Well, I just put the link in the comments. And guys, whoever's watching, Kurt, I know Kurt wants to know about those killer softball games.
Yeah.
And another comment he put in there, you can put some baby oil on it. I assume he's talking about the
fish.
red snapper.
Yeah.
The fish. But I put a link to the Facebook page for Big Chicken Shack Show. So
Nice.
if you guys want to check out Andy's episodes on there, it'll be there.
And I sent you one fun thing we did with that was take Shaq to the Wax Museum. I sent you a link to that. Check that out. It's a quick little, and you'll see. You can try to the game to play is find out where I pop up in that video.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I'll try and put a link to it.
You're never going to hear me. You're just going to see me briefly in the background. You might see me say something to Shaq, but the audio will not be turned on. It'll be music and you'll see Mark and you'll see just the rest of our crew in there.
Have all of the episodes now been put out live?
Yeah, they were
out online.
Yeah, all 8 are there, and they're all different links, but they're fun. Shaq was funny. You'll see. I mean, it was. We had a good time.
That's good. I listen to his podcast each week, and if that's any indication of the type of person and fun that he has, I know you guys had a blast being with him.
Yeah. I regret not taking some. I should have taken a lot of buddy pictures with him because we did so many crazy things together from, going dune buggying in the desert, go-karts in Atlanta, eating hot chicken in Nashville. It would have just been a really hilarious series of like, what are you doing with Shaquille O'Neal all over the country? But it was fun.
That in
the highlights probably would be, my personal highlights would be that swimming at Shacapulco at his house in Orlando, which was amazing. He has a pool that's 23 feet deep, so he can jump off of his rock and not hit the bottom. And then him meeting the kids was awesome. It was fun. They were just so they're so overwhelmed by how giant he was. It was so funny.
Well, I'm not able to post photos in the comments while we're live, but I'll put some of those photos that you sent me, and you're welcome to do so as well. And for those of you watching, if you got any questions or comments you want to throw Andy's way, just put them in the comments section.
Yeah, fire away.
Andy,
I need to be on I need to be on this page. Hang on.
I don't know if you can you get to the Facebook. I also put it now. If you go to Stuckey and Murray's page, you're not going to see those comments. It's going to be on my professional page. It's the one where I've got a tie on. But some pretty funny stuff out there from your brother, from Kurt. But let's talk about. I want to go back to the old neighborhood for just a minute.
Yeah.
And somehow, some way, we cornered the Brentwood Yard of the Month signage, despite having a dog that was a prolific number 2 depositor. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the jealousy on the Stuckey household, a few houses down. That coupled with your basketball court, which we seem to be at almost weekly, those made for some fun times in the neighborhood, that's for sure.
Yes. I'll say this. The Stuckeys were never going to be a candidate for Brentwood Yard of the Month. Our yard was, I mean, like a run-down pear tree with some kind of trimmed shrubs, and our little brother Reeves digging a hole as deep as you possibly could in the backyard just because he liked digging. One of his things. And there was just no way we were ever going to be Brentwood Yard of the Month. But y'all had a corner on it. I feel like it was either who else won it besides y'all. I can't think of another family that won it.
Frankly, it may have
And
been
who
our
was
own
maintaining
sign.
that?
I
Was
didn't
that
know
you?
it.
Was Joel putting y'all onto that? Was that you, Robbie?
I don't know if, Andy, I'm not so sure there actually was a competition. It may have just been our own sign, and we just may have just left it there.
That's the gimmick people should start doing in neighborhoods in Dothan. Is just make your own sign that says, Woodmere Yard of the Month, Garden District
Andy,
Yard of the Month.
I want to tell you, we've got here's somebody from childhood who's popped on, Marianne Hornbuckle. She's watching us live.
Hilarious.
So, hey, Miss Hornbuckle, hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in for a minute. But Andy, as we get closer toward the end of the interview, and I appreciate your time this morning, talk to us a little bit about what are you up to these days, or where do you see? I know you've got 20 odd years in the comedy circuit. You're in Brooklyn. That's one of the epicenters for comedy and how tough the game is. Tell us a little bit about what you've observed over the years, and where do you see comedy going? Because we see people like Louis C.K. just. You always got to keep in mind, there's always a hot mic somewhere, and it's going to get you in trouble. And that's so different from when you started out.
Oh, I'm glad my sets were not recorded. Trust me. We never. There was, you're not supposed to record. A comedian determines when it's time to film and record my set. That's just the way it's always been. But we're living in a different time now, obviously. It is, people are just, they'll pull out their phones without asking permission for just anything. But where I see comedy going, I don't know, stand-up is at a real tough place because of that. You don't have the ample time that comedians like to work all their stuff out. Or, they like to, it would be nice to work it out in 10 different clubs and try it out like they used to. But, that's still possible at some places. But it's just, if you're famous, it's not that possible. If you're already famous, you're just in that different world of some people just might be out to get you.
Andy, is it still the situation, and this is not my world, this is just me learning and reading and hearing podcast, can you as a professional still go to certain clubs in the 5 boroughs and sign up and get some time late at night in these clubs, or do you have to be contacted first to be scheduled or auditioned, those kind of things?
Well, the great thing about New York is that there are a lot of comedy shows. There are a lot of open mics too, so you can do that. Now, you're not going to be at Gotham. You're not going to be doing a big club. It's not like you're going to be. Some of those clubs have open mics, but they might want you to bring 5 or 6 people, or they might you're not going to get a lot of time, or it's going to be a weird time slot. You're not going to be on at 9 p.m. on an open mic at any big comedy club. But there's a lot of bar shows, and there's a lot of opportunity, and that's the one great thing about New York. I mean, I'm out of that performing game right now. I don't really perform comedy much anymore. My wife and I sing songs. We're at music venues and doing that kind of thing. But for comedians, there still is access to. I mean, you can still do 3 or 4 shows a night, and within it might take you 20 minutes to travel between each set. And there's no substitute for that because you think a joke that you like, a 5-minute bit that you like, try it. If it doesn't work, you can rewrite it in those 20 minutes if you want. Try it again, rewrite it, or just do it the next night. There's something going on every night in the city, and that is why comedy works. So that's why so many comedians come to New York, because this is about the only place you can
Sure.
do that. There's a lot of
Sure.
shows in LA and a lot of clubs and a lot of venues, but they're further spread out. You got to drive. It's not as easy as bouncing from show to show in New York.
So when someone on YouTube sees Bert Kreischer's The Machine story, which seemed to be the one that propelled him to his stardom, he's probably been working on that story for a decade to perfect it.
It could have been, absolutely. I mean, your first album, I know comedians that have just released albums and they've been performing for 15 years.
Mm-hmm. So they're overnight sensations after 15 years.
Yeah, that's the truth for a lot of people. I mean, that is that, and where Murray and I differed on that, we were a little bit the opposite of that. We released our stuff pretty quickly. Looking back, would it have been smarter to hold on to it? Maybe. If you can only see our stuff live, and then you write more songs, then you whittle it down. Our first album certainly would not have been what it was. If we waited 4 years, our first album would have been a combination of our first two albums and probably stronger. But, I don't regret it because we made money off those albums. We toured off those albums. And, you're young. You want to, there's something when you're young, I feel like too, that I've grown out of, is that when you're young, in your 20s especially, you feel like you have something to say immediately. Like you have that idea, let's put it out, let's go.
Sure.
When I'm 40, I'm like, no, I'll think about it before I release it.
Yeah. Well, you're a little wiser, but one thing you may have grown out of, Michael Bailey is not happy that you're not wearing a tuxedo right now.
Oh.
And have you outgrown your tuxedo, or that just was a style choice you went with the lumberjack?
He's saying it wrong. He's talking about mine and Murray's design, the fuxedo, which is.
Gotcha.
Do you know this? Give me 1 second.
Oh, you know what? He actually, go ahead, Andy.
He's talking about this.
Andy, he said it correctly. I read it incorrectly.
Good. I've still got it, Bailey. I've still got it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I could put it on in probably about 30 seconds. Just be tough to get on over my jeans and shirt. But I've still got it. I still wear it every now and then. I wore it this Halloween, actually.
That's great. Michael, thank you for bringing that up.
That's a business that we, at some point we may have to revisit that. That's one thing I wish we'd gone harder on in our early 30s is that, because I think every college kid that has a formal across this whole country or any sort of black tie event would want that.
Absolutely.
Because you can get in and out. You get in and out of it in about 30 seconds, and the only thing you can lose is everything. Everything's sewn together.
That's right. Andy, as we wrap up, give some words of advice to the up and comers who are trying to either break into the comedy business, or they're frustrated, or they just are looking for a little bit of guidance. What would you have to offer to them?
I would say you have to make your own path on that. You got to create it yourself. So if you're into comedy or you want to make videos, go start making videos. You don't have to release those videos. That's the other thing. You can make them without releasing them because you learn a lot when you make it. It's like us making Mullet Men, or every single comedy video me and Murray made. We didn't release all of them, but we got better at it every time. And that I mean, you have to kind of pave your own path in that way. Other advice would be that don't think you have to come to New York. It's great because there's a lot of like-minded comedy people up here. You can do it from a small place, but you got to find a pocket of people that can help you, and you got to be diligent and consistent about it. You can't just be into it for 2 months and then walk away. You got to dive in and stay in.
You got to create your niche and then become very good at it for what you're known for. Well, Andy, I can't thank you enough for this trip down memory lane and some good laughs. I really appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
And, absolutely. I know that last night's game was not what either one of us want it,
No,
but they'll be back. They'll be back next year.
of course, of course.
Any
And
parting
revenge is a
parting?
dish best served somewhere other than California. Hopefully, I'm not sure where the game's being played next year, but
Yeah, I haven't looked, but what a horrible place for that game. But
well,
that's not an
it was just
excuse.
unlucky. If it was USC in the game, it would be fine. But it is. But San Francisco is not even really a college football town at all, or where at Santa Clara where it is, it's not tough.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Well, Andy, again,
Saban will
thank you.
return. Never fear.
Oh, he's not going anywhere. At least
Yeah,
Bama fans hope not.
yeah.
Andy, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and your week. And Bud, it was good to talk with you and
You
catch up
too.
for a little while.
You got it.
Well, guys, thank you. Anything else you want to conclude with?
Um, I've enjoyed your daily videos. I've enjoyed your daily videos.
Oh, good grief. You're wasting your time there, buddy.
Yeah.
But thank you.
I got to work up my impression of you, then I'll send it to you, and you can post that. I'll work up my Bernard impression.
I'll post it every day. Every day. Guys, thank you again for tuning in. And move your face really, really close to the mic.
Yeah.
I mean, here you go. At some point, I'm going to conclude this interview if I
Yeah.
stop laughing. But guys, have a great rest of your day. And thank you again. Nomberg Law Live comes to you every week. We don't always have this many good chuckles, but Andy, thank you for
See ya.
your time, and we'll get you another time.
You got it. Thanks, man.